No, 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 no.
Hello there. Gaara is the most underrated character in Naruto. Minato Namikaze is a fan favorite, and I think Gaara resembles Minato pretty well, because they are actually pretty similar. They both got Kage really early on in their lives, especially Gaara. He was only 15, which is insane, by the way. They both got some badass jutsu that's not entirely unique, but not only used by only 2 other people, and they're the best at using them. Those other people don't even really matter, because they just outshine them so well, and the efficiency and their use of those jutsu. They both also got some sealing jutsu under their belt. They also both got badass design. They also sacrificed themselves really on into their Kage career for the village, and that both led to them getting revived after being killed because of it, right? Gaara a little bit more early on and more permanent, but revived nonetheless. They also both fought in a Shinobi World War. There's a lot of similarities between them. So I gotta say it, Gaara deserves just as much love as Minato. I mean, the dude literally comes onto the scene threatening to kill his teammates, and they're actually genuinely scared of him, and you're like, okay, that's weird. Later on, the more we see him just killing random people for very little consequence, right? And for also doing very little to make him want to kill them. And you kind of get an understanding, you're like, oh, that's why they were scared of him. You know, because of little things like that, he really amps up his character in part 1. We really get to see him shine in part 1. Not that he doesn't have a really important role in part 2, just that in part 1 is really where his character shined the most, in my opinion, because that's when we got to see him be this, like, devastating Jinchuriki who has a ton of bloodlust, right? He's exactly what Naruto could have been. On top of that, he also really shines in part 1 just because he has the 3rd best fight in the series about, I think it's like 50 or 60 chapters into the manga against Rock Lee. And holy crap, that was so good and so unexpected too, because it's so early on and it's so, like, compared to what we get later on in the series, I don't want to say basic, but it's pretty much basic, and it's still better. That's how good the fight was. And then he gets another great fight against Naruto, which changes his philosophy and his ideals. And then he goes on during the Sasuke retrieval arc to go and save Rock Lee from being killed when he was about to kill him just 50 chapters before this. There's a lot of growth in his character in part 1, and just overall, super good character. Super good character, super underrated. He needs more love. And the thing is, his character arc does not end there. It doesn't even end when he sacrifices his life for his village either. It ends when he fights his dad when he was revived with the Edo Tensei in the 4th Shinobi World War. And we figure out that his mother actually did care for him, and it wasn't Shikaku-san that was protecting him, but rather his mother's. Which has pretty heavy implications, because the only person that we've come to find out that actually cared for Gaara came to assassinate Gaara, and then Gaara ended up killing that person. All while he was still about 5 years old. And if you're still not sold on the depth of this character, he also has maybe not the best thematic speech or the most impactful speech in the series, but he has the most powerful speech in the series. I did not get goosebumps. I did not tear up when I was reading through Naruto's speech to Nagato, which I think is the best in the series, but I did when Gaara was talking to the Shinobi Alliance. It was a really powerful. At that point in the series, Naruto and Killer Bee were the only last 2 people alive, preventing the Akatsuki from finishing their plan. And seeing everything at the 5 Kage Summit, and, you know, getting all this lore about, you know, the past wars and everything that's been going on, you know, the sand attacking the leaf throughout the series, like, there's a lot of conflict that they overcome, and a big part of that is at the top with the Kages. They accept it, but the people in the Shinobi at the bottom, they haven't came to accept it yet. They don't agree with it yet, but Gaara changes that. It's really crazy, and it's really powerful. You can't tell me any of the other commanders up there would have made a better speech, or better yet, a more convincing speech. I think a big factor in why that's the case is just because he's one of Naruto's true friends, and that list isn't very long. Really, you only got like Shikamaru, Sakura, Killer Bee, and Eight Tails, Neji. I guess you could throw Sasuke on there as well. And that's about it, including Gaara, of course. And a lot of what people say to downplay Gaara's character is, oh, okay, well, what did he do other than build up Naruto's character? He didn't really have much impact other than that. And to that, I would say he was the driving force and factor into why Sasuke decided that he's going to go to Orochimaru to chase more power. Naruto being the one to defeat Gaara when Sasuke was proven useless against him, not only in and of itself perpetuated Sasuke's drive to want to go to Orochimaru, but the biggest reason, in my opinion, that led him down that path is because he was about to be killed by Gaara unless he could get his third Chidori off, which he couldn't do with his own power. So instead of using his will to keep in the seal that Kakashi put on his curse mark, he released it and he used that third Chidori. And in doing so, that shifted his character, that shifted him into a path of relying on, outside factors to make him more powerful other than relying on what he is capable of. And of course, his pride and his goals led him to spiraling down deeper and deeper and deeper down that path. And honestly, it's hard to blame him because Orochimaru literally killed their Hokage. If he wants to go get power from somebody, why not go and do it to the guy who killed the most powerful shinobi in your village? You know what I'm saying? Sasuke's goal isn't the most righteous or moral goal anyways. But I digress. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of Gaara's character is his power level. Ever since he was a very young child, like 5 years old, even as an infant, you could probably say younger than 5 years old, he was the strongest in his village, stronger than his father as the Kazekage, because he obviously couldn't kill him after the multiple assassination attempts. But he wasn't the strongest in the series. We've already been introduced to Orochimaru, and we've clearly seen that Naruto wasn't able to defeat Orochimaru with Sasuke's help, and Orochimaru killed the third Hokage, who's very clearly stronger than Gaara. Now that's a very big statement considering he's a Jinchuriki, but I'm of the opinion that Hiruzen was honestly really, really strong, and you can't tell me otherwise. But the thing about Gaara is that he isn't overpowered either. Yeah, he's really nuts in terms of his power, but he lost to Deidara, and yes, that wasn't because he was not as strong as Deidara, but it was rather because he sacrificed his ability to kill Deidara to save his villagers, which is entirely respectable. We don't know what would have happened. I think that Gaara would be able to defeat Deidara, but of course, going on into the series, when he becomes a Kage, he's probably the third strongest Kage in the Naruto generation, definitely the second strongest in the Boruto generation behind Naruto, and he's one of the only people that could step up to Madara. Yeah, he isn't destroying Madara, but who is? Hashirama, Sage of Six Paths empowered Naruto and Sasuke, with teamwork. Yeah, it's still pretty impressive. When Madara showed up, him and Tamari were the only people holding him off, and during the 5 Kage fight, Gaara was one of the only people actually putting in some work. Although I do want to give the Tsuchikage credit because he was basically carrying the 5 Kage in that fight, but other than that, Gaara really was one of the strongest in that fight.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.